The highly anticipated Ishizu cards have arrived in Master Duel. Now, don't worry, they haven't added the other thing yet, so it's not going to impact the game all that much. Basically just you fellow graveyard enjoyers got yourselves a nice little buff. So for today's video I took two archetypes that I know love to be in the graveyard, one of which you're going to be extremely familiar with, and the other one, well, you've probably encountered it at least a couple of times, probably while swearing at the green-haired waifu when she hit the field. And I took both these archetypes, stuffed them into a 60 card pile, slapped in grass as greener, and well, this was the result. So here's today's deck list. Now just a reminder before I get to the deck list, if you're enjoying today's video and want to see more content just like this in the future, especially if you're a returning viewer, as apparently about 50% of the people watching this or even subscribe to the channel, you need all of you returning viewers who've seen my content before. So you find yourself keep coming back to the channel and want to see more content just like this in the future, remember to leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel down below. Also, I have a video planned on G-Golem later this week, so if you're interested in seeing that video, remember to like, subscribe, and let's just get into the deck list. So today's deck list is obviously branded Shaddoll, but what is new about this deck list? Well, of course, we've had to add the brand new Ishizu supporting cards to this deck, all of which are absolutely fantastic with this deck list and have amazing synergy. Why? Well, this entire deck list is all about graveyard interaction, which is something these cards just absolutely excel at. So there are four brand new Ishizu cards. We've got your Keldo, we've got your Mudora, we've got your Kelbek, and we've got your Agido, all of which are absolutely crazy when in the graveyard or on the field, as your first two, your Keldo and your Mudora, basically just turn into DD Crows on crack, as they can banish themselves from field or graveyard as quick effects to target 3 cards in either graveyard and shuffle them back into the deck list. So if your opponent has anything annoying in the graveyard you need to get rid of, you just activate these dudes, shuffle them back into the deck list, and your problem is just dealt with. Also, they can target cards in your own graveyard, which is pretty important for this particular deck list, in case you want to recycle some of your Shaddoll monsters, or let's say you need more targets for your branded fusion, you can just grab your copies of Fallen Albaz and just toss them back into the deck list. Keldo and Mudora then both have a nice little bonus effect. By discarding one other Earth Fairy monster, you can special summon them to the field. Then your Keldo will get a search for one of your other Ishizu cards, and your Mudora won't do anything because it's going to try to search for a trap card that I don't really think was worth running in this deck list, so I didn't bother running it. But I'm still running him anyway as just a name, because he's searchable off your Keldo, and by chance you happen to open just a whole bunch of Ishizu cards, you can use your Keldo to search for your Mudora, then special summon your Mudora as well, so that's why I'm running him. I wouldn't run him at more than 1 copy though, because he's probably the weakest of all your Ishizu effects, so I'm just going to stick to him at 1 copy. To be fair though, these special summon effects aren't really going to be used all that often in this deck list anyway, since it is a 60 card deck list, and the only other sort of Earth Fairy monsters in this deck are the Ishizu cards. You're not going to be opening pairs of these in your hand all that often, but if you do, keep that in mind, these guys do have nice little effects that can special summon themselves from their hand. Kelbek and Agido, when sent from your hand or deck to the graveyard, will send 5 cards from your deck and 5 cards from your opponent's deck straight to the graveyard, which is obviously insane in this deck list because sending copies of your Shaddolls from your deck to the graveyard will activate all of their effects, giving you searches, special summons, a whole bunch of different things, making these really damn impactful in this particular deck list. Also keep in mind, sending 5 cards from your opponent's deck is pretty crazy too, because you can get rid of just really core cards from their deck, and if you happen to send something that's really important, you're like, oh no, I wish I didn't send that, you now have 2 cards that can shuffle those cards back into the deck anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you send something too annoying from your opponent's deck to the graveyard, because you can always put them back in anyway. Then they both have a nice hand trap style effect. Whenever a card is sent from hand or your opponent's deck to their graveyard, you can spiral summon either of these cards straight to the field, with your Kelbek having a nice little effect where on summon, it can target one spiral summon monster your opponent controls and return it to hand. Your Agido isn't quite as good, making it not really that great of a hand trap, where basically it will just target one of your Ishizu cards and bring it back from the graveyard, which in this deck list basically just makes it a beater, as we don't have any Xyz monsters, we don't have any Link monsters, so they don't really do a whole lot when they're on the field, other than just be sort of beat sticks, so generally your Agido is mostly just being used for its mill effect, similar to how these cards are really just being used for their graveyard interaction, but keep in mind your Kelbek is actually a really nasty hand trap that does come up most games if it is ever in your hand. As for the rest of the deck list, it's all just your typical brand Shaddoll stuff, which I'm not going to go through in this video in particular, simply because, well, 99% of people watching this probably know, at least to some extent, what those cards do anyway, so it's kind of silly for me to go through them here. Both these art types are extremely popular, especially the branded side, so I'm not going to bother going through the rest of the cards in here, and it is a 60 card deck, so I'd be here for 2 hours anyway. So without further ado, let's get into some replays. So with today's deck list, I had actually a pretty incredible run with it. I didn't expect to do this well with the deck list. I know I'm currently only in Platinum, but still, I didn't think this deck list would do all as well as it did anyway. I went 7-1 with it. I think I started here, I think. So I ended up going 7-1 with this deck list, which is pretty damn impressive for a deck that, well, a 60 card pile that I sort of just stuffed together. So it was actually a really decent deck list. I'm really impressed with sort of how the new Ishizu cards actually played. As you'll see from these first 2 replays at least, how good these cards are at just countering things in general. Because this last replay is going to show a lot of back and forth sort of gameplay and actually show off how the Shaddoll branded side things. But these two replays are basically just going to be showcasing just how good the Ishizu cards are just on their own, as just nice little hand traps or just nice little removal, just removing stuff from your opponent's graveyard. They're actually just really, really strong cards on their own. Alright. So this one, I'm not sure if this is the runic player or the other one. Alright, so my hand was absolutely god-awful. I have no fusion spells, no fusion trap cards, absolutely nothing, no searches for them, so I'm just like, I'm just going to pass and hope my Gamma and my Maxx can carry. This does happen occasionally with this deck list, as it is a 60 card deck list, and as you guys know, 60 card deck lists, they're not generally known for their high consistency, so it is a bit of a brick. That's the price you pay to try to play Grass is Greener, I guess. Alright. So activate his Preparation of Rites. I still have 3 hand traps in hand, by the way, because I also have my Kelbek, which you'll see in a second. He uses Diviner. We're going to get rid of that immediately, because that one is really damn annoying. And we want to make sure to use up our Gamma as quickly as possible, because otherwise, if we summon our Kelbek to use its effect, if on the field, will then stop the Gamma being usable. So it's best to use the Gamma as quickly as possible. Alright. Can activate his dude over here, sending a card from hand to the graveyard. I'm going to Maxx. I couldn't use a Kelbek there because there's actually nothing on the field to return to hand, but that's the kind of interaction I could use Kelbek in response to if he had something. Alright, adds his Herald to hand. Then he's going to instantly summon out the Herald. Not sure if this was the best play from him. I guess he wanted to get it out as quickly as possible because he was worried about more Maxx procs. But in doing so, he actually didn't have another fairy in hand, meaning, on summon of my Kelbek, because he sent a card from hand to graveyard, I can target this thing, return it to hand, and it's gone. And that's basically just the end of his turn. He can't really do anything else from there. And I've now drawn into my Shaddoll Fusion, so I'm happy to just play the rest of the game now. Good to go. Maxx has successfully unbricked my hand. I think as soon as I activate this, he just concedes. Alright. On to our second replay, and this was the runic replay. This is the matchup that I had quite a lot today, and it just shows how good this new support is in response to specifically runic, as I didn't really think about this at the time. But their field spell, it likes to shuffle cards from their graveyard. If you get rid of the stuff in their graveyard, well, especially in response to their field spell, they don't get to draw cards, so it just completely just clogs up their deck, which is all about trying to, or relies on, getting stuff back from their graveyard to draw cards. Alright, so gets his Fountain, activates it, then passes the turn, so not the best runic board, no floodgates, but probably has a lot of interaction in hand. I think you'll see a few of them. Alright, so first thing we do is summon out our dude by discarding a copy of one of my other fairy dudes, and searching for my Kelbek. Random opening, discarding, special summoning. This will activate Kelbek's effect to mill 5 as well, as beginning a search. Of course, chain blocking, so we get our search for our branded in case he has Ash Blossom. Milling 5 from both sides. Getting our branded fusion. Hitting a beast, giving us a card draw. Activate branded fusion. Sending 2 more cards to the graveyard, making sure to put snow in there. Summoning Albion. This is because we already milled a copy of our Fallen of Albaz, so we can just use that in graveyard, rather than going into our other dude, our Libellion. He activates his negate. I thought about maybe going into snow here and banishing this dude, but I was like, nah. Don't really have much to summon then anyway. Alright, getting a search from my dude. He activates his, and this is the part I wanted to showcase the most from this replay. He activates his Runic Fountain, targeting 3 cards in his graveyard. In response, I can banish my Mudora from graveyard. I could also have just done it with my Keldo on field as well, targeting the exact same 3 cards, putting them back in the deck, meaning his Runic Fountain draws absolutely nothing, leaving him with only 2 cards still in hand. And going my Ad Libitum. If you came across this matchup a lot, by the way, I would actually recommend running more copies of your Mudora, because I'm only running 1, because like I said, I feel like its effect is by far the worst of the Ishizu cards. But if you come across this particular matchup all the goddamn time, this card's effect becomes really damn good and much worth running in this deck list. There's also copies of the what are they called? The Shaddoll monster, which I think I'll show in one of these replays, that does the exact same thing, just except it banishes them rather than shuffling them back into the deck, which is technically probably better, so you could probably run that card as well. But this one's just better, as it's generally better because it can be used in response to the fountain rather than having to just sort of banish stuff beforehand. Alright. Adding my Fallen Albaz to hand, summoning my dude to the field. Showing you another nice little interaction here, because this card normally protects your field spell from destruction, but it won't do so if you target itself at the same time, so you go to destroy both of them at the same time. Alright, this of course bringing back my fusion monster. He's going to try and destroy this. We don't care, because we've already used a copy of our dude earlier this turn. Our spell card. So you need to protect it with that. Pop both these cards, he doesn't get to protect it. And they're gone. And I think he concedes after this? Not even gonna bother call buying that. Could have, but yeah. Alright, so that shows off just the extent of how good these Ishizu cards are. Now let's show off some actual branded, some branded Shaddoll gameplay. Which I do think it uses the Ishizu cards. I'm just wanting to show off an actual replay. Alright. This guy had like a nearly 60 card deck list as well, didn't he? Yeah, he had 60 cards as well. I think this was Thunder Dragon, actually. I think he was actually playing the Ishizu cards, if I remember correctly. Alright, so Branded Fusion. I noticed my hand didn't have a Shaddoll monster, which is needed for my Shaddoll Fusion to go into my Shaddoll monsters, so I made sure to send a copy of Hedgehog, which gives me a search for a Shaddoll monster. Going to be discarding my dude, because this card just counts when it's ever sent to the graveyard, even by discard from Rebellion. I'm going to summon my Mirror Jade, I'm going to mill 5, and I'm going to get a search. Grabbing my Wendi. Sending 5 to the graveyard. Also sending 5 of my opponent's cards. And here is the Shaddoll card I was talking about earlier, which can also banish cards from my opponent's graveyard. Making sure to get rid of these annoying Ishizu cards, because I know at least this one is really good when it's in their graveyard, so I'm going to make sure to sort of get rid of that one. Not going to banish their Thunder Dragon card though, so that'd be troll. Alright, then I'm going to take my Shaddoll Fusion, summoning out a copy of Winda, and of course getting a search from my Wendi and my Tragedy as well. So those of you that don't know what Winda does, basically it means my opponent can only, me and my opponent can only do one special summon a turn. So a very nice Floodgate card that will make it very hard for a Thunder Dragon player to actually play the game. Alright. I'm going to banish my card, getting a search for my trap card during the end phase. So I already searched my Branded in red. So now I have a nice little counter trap as well. Honestly, I could have saved, just sort of used the Mirror Jade banish instead of searching for the counter trap, but I wanted to show you that you can search for both. Because normally you use the, obviously use your Aluber's search to grab your Branded Fusion, but in this case we'd already done that, so we can search for Branded Red, and then we can search for our Branded Retribution as well, which isn't the greatest of trap cards, but it is really good when it's in the graveyard, so it's not bad sort of using it as a counter trap here, even if it does mean getting rid of your Mirror Jade. Alright. Opponent's gonna do a whole bunch of punk stuff. I'm not gonna do absolutely anything because I don't really care. We're just waiting for him to try and do his special summon. Doing a search. And then he activates his Punk Foxy, which we are now going to negate, because I don't really want to have Foxy smacking over this card with battle damage since it's 2300, 2200, we're just going to negate that. I could have waited and used my Branded Red to remove it, but I didn't really feel the need to. I want to save that for Potentially if he has any back row or something I need to remove instead. Alright, shuffles that back in, swings in, gives this thing a flip effect, so I don't really care, I'll just get a search from it. I'm gonna grab my Schism, which is basically the best card, one of the best cards in the Shaddoll archetype. This will allow me to fusion summon basically infinitely, if I have enough resources in graveyard, so just gonna grab that one. Summoning my Masquerade. Getting a Surge, adding another copy of my Libitum. Alright, now my card in graveyard, my trap card in grave, I can banish it. Adding my Branded Fusion back to hand. And my opponent just concedes from there. Even though I couldn't really do anything with that Branded Fusion, because I could only special summon once, so I wasn't going to do a whole lot, but I guess he was pretty done so just from Winda on the field anyway. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, hope to see you guys in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.